Hi, how's it going? Welcome to week 1 of the Alchemy of Healing online self-paced course. I'm so glad you made it out and you're here with me watching this video. So a few housekeeping items to start. First of all, make sure that you're feeling in a grounded, safe place. You have some time to dedicate to yourself. I also recommend having kind of a little safe space, setting aside either like in your office or at the kitchen table that you have everything that you need with you so that we can really hunker down and concentrate and learn together. So I also recommend that you have your lemon water or a glass of water or tea, something that's going to hydrate you as we go along here. And also that you are feeling like just at peace right now and that you have that capacity to take in some new information. So that's one thing. The other part of this is just this being the very first video. I just want to remind you that while I am a coach and I am a pharmacist and I am a graduate student in counseling psychology, I am not your personal coach or counselor at this point. So I just want you to make sure that you're being safe and you're taking responsibility for yourself by reading the disclaimer and making sure that anything that you do try new, that you're getting cleared by your doctor, psychiatrist, counselor, coach, pharmacist, and that you're taking responsibility in that arena. That being said, I also want to point out that my goal with you guys is to have you kind of come out of your comfort zone a little bit. The real healing comes in what I like to call the yellow zone. So if you think of your nervous system as having 3 different states, it has the green zone, which is I'm perfectly comfortable, I'm at home, I'm watching Netflix, I'm relaxed. That's the green state. And that's a good state to be in when you're wanting to rest and repair. The yellow zone is the zone where you're just kind of coming out of that. There's a little bit of stress maybe in your body in that you're on higher alert. You're paying attention. You're zoned in. That's the zone where we want to push you into a little bit so that you can open up to learn something new. What I don't want to push you into today especially, and hopefully it won't, but if there is anything that I say or that happens throughout the course of this 6 weeks together that pushes you into the red zone, which is a traumatic kind of fight or flight response, and we'll get into how to sense that in your body and pick up on the cues of where that's happening, because that's really important as well. And it does happen. I can't prevent it from happening because it does. It's a part of our experience here. So it's going to happen. But my goal isn't to push you into that today per se, but my goal is to have you be able to identify when those times happen by the sensations in your body, which we're going to talk about more today, and what to do about it when it happens and how you can heal it and shift it and change it, transform it, which is ultimately what alchemy is. So that being said, that's my little housekeeping spiel. Welcome to this place of self-discovery. As I mentioned in the introductory video, we are going on a journey together. We are going to learn, we are going to explore, we are going to investigate our sense of self. And when we do that, when we really have a good foundation of sense of self, of understanding how the mind-body works, understanding how fear manifests in the body, what's going on there, understand everything that's happening with regards to your sensations, your emotions, your thoughts, your belief system, your old programming, your health, all of it together. How can we synthesize that data and make something new out of it? How can we actually create new neuro pathways in the brain? So that's the goal of the entire course, is to have you come away with a little bit more empowerment, or a lot more empowerment in how to navigate your own nervous system, your own sense of self and power. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense right off the bat. And hopefully you have had a chance to write down your outcome statement. And I really do think that this is an important step because it sets an intention for the entire 6 weeks. It gives you a grappling hook, like something to anchor into, so that you know the direction that you're wanting to head in. And it's not to say that that can't shift or be amended over time as you start to learn and gain new insight and higher perspective. That can shift and change, and of course it's going to. But just for now, knowing what it is that you want to achieve or feel or experience. So whether that's more comfort in your body, whether that's less pain, more pleasure in your body, whether that's more harmony in your relationships, it really is important to set those intentions there and understand what it is specifically to you, what you want to learn and accomplish. So grab your workbooks as well. Make sure that you have those on hand. Those will help you kind of keep the structure of the course going and will be a reference point for you. Take notes, do the journal prompts, and make sure that you incorporate that into your learning as well. And also, as we're going along in these 6 weeks, start to think about different practices that you want to incorporate into your life. And I recommend, it's my personal opinion, that they need to be fun. They need to be things that you enjoy doing, or you won't keep doing it. So this course is not about forcing yourself through self-will or discipline in a sense, or trying to self-will yourself into doing things. We really want to start to incorporate this as these practices and these new habits as your natural state of being. And that's to me one of the goals in my own personal health journey, is to be able to just naturally be inclined to want to move my body in a healthy way, and my intuitively eat what my body is telling me that I need, and to intuitively and with inspiration want to participate in my relationships the best that I can. So it's not a question of motivation per se. It's inspiration, and it's actually coming from within. And to really recognize when you're being really hard on yourself, because let's just face it, we as women especially, but men as well, we are hard on ourselves. We're our own worst inner critic. So being able to let ourselves off the hook when we need to, and to, again, anchor into that overall desire. If you know that when you wake up, it feels the best to move your body, to dance, to maybe do some Zumba, to do some yoga. If that's what feels the best for you and specific to your life, then you keep doing that. There's a few things that, like exercise is one of them. Drinking a lot of water. Again, I recommend water with lemon. It helps with digestive system and everything. And just overall hydration for your skin, for your digestive system, for your overall functioning of your body. Water is super important. Other practices like meditation, whatever type of meditation works better for you is what's going to be key. Some people like the apps. Some people like guided visual meditations. Some people just like the ending kind of meditation that you do at yoga classes. Some people, I teach orgasmic meditation. That's another option to learn and dig into. Even just being mindful, that's a meditative state as well. Just that mindfulness of like, okay, I'm going to really get into washing my hands and be present and mindful of doing one task at least a day. That can be a form of meditation. So it really is a personal choice in what you end up doing there, and there's no right or wrong. So it's not like one way is better than the other. It's whatever is getting results for you. So try, just explore, try. I have a little list in the workbook. There's yoga, there's massage therapy. Making sure you get outside into nature is really important. we're creatures, right? So we need to be outside, we need to be connected to nature. That has been actually scientifically proven that it's helpful in depression and anxiety. So making sure you're getting outside and exploring nature, just being that fresh air experience is really important. Visualization, meditations, the sauna, that can be really great. Aromatherapy, getting your coaching and your counseling and your therapy in. That talk therapy is really important and really healing. Journaling is for me one of my favorite things. It helps me understand myself and my own psyche and what's going on, and it helps me process my emotions and understand myself. So journaling, I don't know what I would do without journaling. Cold exposure, if you have heard of Wim Hof or the Mayo Brothers online, I recommend you check them out. Cold exposure can be really healing for the body. And then laughter. I think the biggest sign that you're healing is that you have a sense of humor around something. So if you can get to the point where instead of being triggered or getting upset or reacting to something and you can laugh about it, you know you've made some progress in that arena. So I think that play and teasing and love and laughter, all of those things go hand in hand because they're a part of our natural kind of childlike personality or demeanor that is really, really important just to enjoy life, and that's our access to pleasure as well. So I encourage you to find ways that you can laugh and practice laughter and practice the sensations of laughter and humor, and keeping in mind that that can be an indication that you've healed something, is that you can find humor around it. So the thing that I want to talk to you about today is kind of the foundation of all of this, and it's the mind-body connection. So I know you've probably picked up on little snippets here and there about what the mind-body connection is, so it shouldn't be totally a new concept to you. Basically, it's how much our beliefs and the way that we perceive the world in our belief system and the thoughts that we're thinking over and over again, how that actually directly affects the body, and that there's a connection there. So there's two main examples I want to use today. There's a lot of them out there, but there's two really important ones I want to talk about today that will kind of prove it to you that it's a real thing. And but keep looking for other examples because there's a lot out there. But the first one is we're just going to discuss the placebo effect. So what is the placebo effect? We use it as kind of a gauge to measure against in randomized control trials. Like if it's better than placebo, then the drug works, is the basis of that. So that being said, what is the placebo effect? The placebo effect is basically if you believe something's going to happen, it does. Even if it's taking a medication or a supplement or something, if you really believe that it's going to work for you, it works. And the stat that I've heard around it is it's 30% or something like a third of the time that the placebo effect is actually what's causing the transformation or the change in the body. And it's actually nothing other than that, because they're being given a placebo, like they're being given a sugar pill, not the actual drug, and it's taking effect. And then there's also countless books and like anecdotal stories and observational studies around spontaneous healing, and that having a positive mindset does lead to better outcomes, and having a doctor that believes in your treatment and believes in your positive outcome affects your outcome. Like all of that has been studied and looked at, and it's real. So overall, there's a lot of kind of external data that way, but I also want to prove it to you on an internal way. So I want you to think, if you can just kind of take a few deep breaths And we're going to go into kind of a mini meditation here. A meditation or kind of visualization exercise. And you don't have to close your eyes just yet, because I have a prop I want to show you. So this is a lemon, right? So you can see the lemon is, you don't have the lemon, I have the lemon, and it's virtual to you, right? You're watching a video. But you can see that it's a real lemon. So what I'm going to do is get you to close your eyes right now. With your eyes closed, you've gotten a little bit of a view of the lemon. So I want you to picture it in your mind with your eyes closed. So I'm just going to describe it to you. It's yellow. It's got thick skin that's kind of dimpled. And you can really feel the texture of it when you run your finger across it. It's firm. When you squeeze it, you can feel that it's ripe and juicy inside. But the skin around it is quite thick and sturdy. And so now imagine you take a knife and you slice it in half. And it takes a little bit of pressure. You gotta really push down on that skin, that tough skin. And then you can feel the difference between the skin and the juicy flesh inside. So imagine doing that. And now imagine taking the lemon, it's now in 2 halves, and you squeeze the juice out. And you watch it squeeze out, and it does kind of like a spraying action around it. And the juice goes into a cup. You're squeezing the juice out into a cup. And yeah, you can see it's squeezing out, and there's just those little particles that kind of mist out from it. And you can start to smell it now too. It's acidic and like a sharpness in the scent of it, and that lemony smell that you're really familiar with. It's a clean smell. And then I want you to imagine putting the lemon down, picking up the cup, taking a sip of that very sour juice. And so just notice right now if there's any change in your saliva, in your facial expressions. Like even when I was describing it there, I kind of made a sour face, right? So just even, and I have the lemon here. It's not cut open though. I can't smell it. Like there's nothing other than just a, intact lemon here. So I can't smell it. I can't smell the juice. I can't taste the juice. But even I made that face, and I can feel in my mouth. I've got gum in my mouth, but I can feel that I can I can almost visualize tasting that sour flavor. And this is how you're actually changing your physiology just by imagining. So it's pretty cool. And if that exercise was very difficult for you, you had a hard time concentrating on it, or a hard time even visualizing it, that's okay too. It is a skill that we can learn. And it's something that even I've had to really practice in being able to visualize. And sometimes we're taught that it's just imagination, don't look into it too much, and we kind of cut ourselves off from having the ability to really be visual creatures. So if that is a struggle for you, that's okay. That's fairly normal too. So just practice the visualization, and just keep an open mind and open heart that it is possible. Okay, so getting into the mind-body connection now. I really want to talk about the difference between there's kind of 3 main areas here. And we're going to talk about physiology in the brain, and how the different brains there's 3 different brains in the body, 4 if you count kind of an extra one, but there's overall, we're going to talk today about these 3 different neural networks that exist within the body that are very powerful. So there's the brain, like up in the head, that brain, what we think of when we say brain. There's the heart brain, and then there's the gut brain. And all of them are in communication with each other. It isn't just this top mind brain or the head brain that regulates and dictates and governs the entire rest of the body. That includes also the spinal cord. So the gut brain is powerful and in and of itself giving you a lot of information. The heart brain is very, very powerful as well. If you look at the Heart Math Institute, it can tell you they're just studying the heart and what information is taken in and out of from the heart center, and all science. So understanding that we have these 3 systems, and we have some different parts of the brain as well that are important. So we have the oldest brain, which is the reptilian brain, and it's back in the brainstem. It's the amygdala, it's the fight or flight system, and it's the part of the brain that we share with every other living creature, animal on the planet. So that's why it's called the reptilian brain, is because it's similar, if not almost the same, as what a reptile would have. So we share that part, and it's the fight or flight mechanism. And then we have the mammalian brain, which is the more human, monkey, emotional house of the brain. And again, it's the older part. The reptilian brain is the oldest, and then the mammalian brain is the second oldest. And it governs, again, emotions, how we process emotions, how we tie emotions into certain things. So you know how you would tie kind of a nostalgic feeling around certain smells. Like if you walk into a house and you smell baking apple pie, that brings back a memory of growing up at grandma's house, stuff like that. That's coming from that mammalian brain, or the limbic system is the other word for it. And then the third part is the prefrontal cortex, and I point to this area because it kind of sits here, but it's all of the newest, the neocortex, the outermost layer of the brain. And that's kind of where we get our executive function and our conscious part of our brain. It's the thing that makes all the decisions that we actually think of, the thoughts that form. So the prefrontal cortex is kind of the thoughts. The limbic system and the heart are more of the emotions. And then the gut, or the instinctual, or the reptilian part of the brain, the brainstem, that's the more of like the feelings of fight or flight and sensations. So those are the 3 that are important to know, because how that's relevant to us and what we're doing in this work together is to understand that they all are different forms of data and information and messages that we're getting continuously all the time from our environment. So the reptilian brain is bringing in anything that could be threatening to us. The mammalian brain is bringing in anything that's relational, anything that's social, anything that is tribal in nature, where we have to be connected to each other because we depend on each other for survival. So again, we're building up on the different levels of the brain. Anything that's connection, intimacy, that's all the mammalian brain. And then the thought forms and different thoughts that are coming in, and either they feel like they're happening to us or we feel like we're effortlessly thinking them, that's happening in the prefrontal cortex. So knowing the difference between them means that we can start to discriminate and discern and understand what the messages are that they're trying to tell us, because the thing is that they all get kind of tangled up together, meshed up together. So when we can separate them out and look at them individually, then we can start to understand what they are trying to tell us collectively, if that makes sense. So what we start with is the level of the body, which is sensation. And sensations are anything that are you're feeling, your kind of your five senses, right? So sight, smelling, taste, hearing, and then feeling, so touch. Then there's another one which is proprioception, which is like kind of like your spatial orientation. So you know how you can close your eyes and reach for something? That's your proprioception. So you've got all these different mechanisms of taking in sensation. And sensation in and of itself is neutral. So it's, if you think, my easiest example is when you think of the sensations in your body around nervousness and around excitement. It can be very similar sensations. So the sensation for me when I'm either nervous or excited is that I get kind of like a tightness in my stomach, like the muscles in my stomach tighten. So there's like a tight feeling, and then a fluttering in my chest. And the story that I put on those sensations, those aren't neutral. Those have judgment. Those have expectation. So if I'm expecting something really good to happen, then it's excitement, right? I'll label those sensations as excitement. If, though, it's something that I don't feel in control of or I feel afraid around, I'll label it as nervousness. But when I actually get down to it, those sensations are neutral. They're just feelings in my body. Okay? So we're taking in all of this data all of the time. So I just heard recently that we take in like billions of units of data per moment. So if you think like I'm sitting in this room, the dogs are over here, there's a window in front of me, there's a window here, sometimes there's cars going by, sometimes people walk by the windows on the street outside. So even though I'm paying attention to you and making this video, I kind of am aware of my surroundings. The temperature in the room, my bottom as I'm sitting on this chair, the sweater against my skin. So all of it is data that I'm taking in. But it's being filtered. And it's being filtered up into my prefrontal cortex or my thought brain. And I can't remember the source of it, but out of the billions and billions of units of information that we're getting in at one given moment, it's something like 40 that actually reach my perception. So what we're doing when we're increasing our ability to communicate with our bodies, which some people might also call intuition, is learning how to translate that gut feeling, is that we're learning how to take in and filter different sources of information that's already coming in. It's not magic per se, right? It's already coming in. It's just, how do I increase my awareness around it? How do I increase my ability to understand what it's trying to tell me? Or if it's important or not, right? So the sensations themselves is something that we're going to talk about in depth throughout the entire 6 weeks together and beyond, because it gives us this grounding point in time. Sensations happen in real time. They don't happen, we don't anticipate them. Well, we can anticipate them, but we do that more with emotions and thoughts. But if you sit right now in your body, you can feel sensations, and that pulls you into the present moment. And living more in the present moment has been proven to increase happiness and satisfaction, because you can actually take in what's going on around you and enjoy it, and just be with it and be surrendered and peaceful around it. So that's what I hear a lot of my clients when I talk to them initially. One of their main goals is to feel more present and peaceful, whether it's at work or with their kids or with their families or with their partner or just life in general. When they go on vacation, they want to actually be present while they're there and not be in the future or the past, not be in worry or anxiety or worrying about how they're being perceived or they're perceiving things. So that's really important, to be able to come back into the present moment, and sensations help us do that. The next part is the emotions, and emotions are energetic, they're movement. So it's like a feeling moves through you, right? And if you think of emotions, and maybe you need some language around emotions as well. Some people are really in touch with their emotions and some people really aren't. I'm somebody who tends to intellectualize my emotions more than I feel them, so I really have to work at feeling them so that I can get connected to them and understand them. So emotions are, again, they're telling us something. They're information. The stories that we put around them, those aren't neutral, but emotions in and of themselves are also something that connect us to all other people, because everybody understands the feeling of jealousy per se, or excitement, or usually the more painful ones are louder, and we pay more attention to them because they kind of hurt. So that's where we can generate a lot of compassion, is understanding, okay, like, I know what it's like to feel jealous, or I know what it's like to feel grief. And then when you can describe it sensationally in your body, like grief feels like a sinking in my stomach and just a heaviness overall, then anybody in the room who also feels that can be like, that's how I feel too. And now we don't feel alone in it. Even if I'm not feeling it right now, I know what it's like to feel that. And now I feel more connected to you. And that's actually what intimacy is. And that intimacy is healing. That intimacy is a nutrient that we all require. And it's really, really important to feel connected to other people, because it calms down our nervous system and it makes us feel like we're accepted and we're loved and we're safe, is the big thing. So safety is another theme that we'll end up talking about quite a bit in the next 6 weeks. So again, learning the language around sensations, emotions, can be a new endeavor, because maybe you haven't even been asked ever. I remember when I started learning this, I said to my mom, I'm like, well, what do you feel in your body? And she just was like, she just looked at me and was like, nobody's ever asked me that before. I don't know how to answer that. And fair enough. Nobody had ever asked her. Nobody had asked her to tune into her own body. So why would she? So then she ended up starting to take yoga, and at first she thought yoga was really silly and she didn't understand it, and then she gave it a try, and now she goes to yoga once or twice a week, and loves yoga and can tell you more about what's going on in her body. So it's really important to be gentle with yourself there, that if this is something new to you, that's okay. It's totally okay. Even if it's not new to you to feel emotions, like if you're a really empathic person and you're sensitive and you can feel a lot, but you don't really feel like you have control over it, learning the language and understanding this will be helpful later on when we go into boundaries and we go into self-esteem and so that sense of sovereignty. Because knowing where you begin and what your emotions are and what somebody else's are is really, really important. So that limbic system really connects us, right? And it's like, if you think of when somebody angry walks into a room, nobody else has been angry in the room, but somebody comes into the room and they're super mad. Again, we pick up on all of these little cues, right? Whether it's their body language, or they huff, or they're frowning, or just like what we would call just generally the energy of that person. It's all these little cues, these energetic cues, these visual, sensory, whatever you want to call it, cues that this person is angry. And now all of a sudden everybody's on edge. And that's what limbic connection is that we do tune into each other. We care. We, unless we're maybe on the autism spectrum or we have some issue around being able to connect in that way, most of us have that ability to really tune in. And if you're very empathic, then it's hard to not get totally overwhelmed and swept up with that. So while it can be a very good skill that you have to be sensitive and empathic and be able to tune into people, that can be very useful on the one hand. On the other hand, when it's powering you and you don't seem to be at all in control of it, then you're at the mercy of it, right? So what I want to do is help you have some skills around recognizing, okay, just because this person is angry doesn't mean that I have to go on their ride with it, so to speak, or become angry myself, or become afraid of what that's going to mean. Like, I can maintain my sense of self. So this is where the boundaries come in later on. And then, so emotions are again, they're sensations with momentum. So it's like that like burst of happiness or joy, like when you explode with laughter, right? Like it's like a movement of energy. Or when you feel like down with grief, right? And so our body language, again, is really expressive there. But also just knowing what's an emotion, what's a sensation, and what's a description of something. So like saying like, I feel like crap isn't an emotion. It's saying like, I don't feel like, I feel afraid, or I feel sick, or I feel nauseous, or whatever I feel like crap means to you. It's a descriptive thing, and it's more in your head than it's more about the thoughts that are describing it than the emotion itself. So getting to know the kind of core emotions, because there really aren't that many. There's anger, grief, disgust, fear, joy, anticipation, and love. Really, if you distill it down, there aren't really that many. And they're all based in sensation again. So that's why that's important. The next thing so recognizing when you're having an emotional experience is important. And again, women are kind of primed to understand emotions and recognize them and just kind of inherently get what's going on with emotions because of our estrogen receptors, because of the way that we're conditioned in our culture. We kind of have a heads up, like a head start from men in how to understand this. And we're just more emotionally driven as well. Or I should say we're more relationship driven, which means that we have very attuned limbic systems, because to care for children, we have to be very attuned to what the child needs and is feeling. And that's not to say that men don't. It's just that the testosterone and then the cultural expectation has kind of made it be so that they're lagging behind in this understanding and this connective piece. But that doesn't mean they don't have the capacity to do it. They do. We just maybe have to do a little bit more around the education around it with them and be compassionate there. So everybody has the capacity to learn this stuff, and everybody's a little bit different too. Like again, like I said, I'm a very heady person. I'm an intellectual. I like intellectual discourse. I like to understand language and concepts and mechanics and ideas. So that's my funnel into my emotions. Whereas some people don't care about that. They don't care about the kind of academia of it. They want to just feel what they feel, and they don't need to have a big rationale for it. So if you're like that, that's great too. You can just, it actually does make it easier for things like energy healing and the placebo effect to take effect, because you just don't waste a bunch of energy analyzing it. But I think most of us are very cut off from our emotions and dissociated, and we'll get into that next week in the making friends with fear of what's going on there, as opposed to being just kind of like chill. So understanding fear is going to be important next week. So then we get into thoughts. And thoughts are perceptions, and they're changeable. So while sensations and emotions are kind of the core of how we are made up, thoughts are the things that they're a little bit ethereal. They seem to happen in the ether, or in kind of out there. There's lots of different theories on how consciousness is generated, or if it's generated, or if we're, I could get into that part of it. That might be a different course altogether. But basically, thoughts can be changed, and neural pathways in the brain can be changed. It used to be in psychology and neuroscience that they thought once the brain was solidified, that's it, it's not changing. That's totally not true. We can definitely change the way that our brain is wired. And it can take some effort, like any new habit takes some effort, but it's doable. So that to me is having, anytime you have kind of a aha moment, as Oprah used to call it, then your perception has changed. The way that you see something from a different angle has been altered. And that basically changes your brain forever because you can't unsee it. So the actual practice of taking these beliefs and unpacking them and looking at them and demanding to know if they're true, and the whole Byron Katie the work process really is a really good start for that. Of if you have a belief that feels like you can't get rid of it, she has a great worksheet called the Judge Thy Neighbor worksheet. And you just like, you take your judgment, you take your resentment. It's like, my husband never listens to me. And you do a whole process. And it's actually really fun. I find it fun. Again, that intellectual side of me finds it amusing. But it also gives you a lot of clarity on how your thoughts are affecting your behavior. And your behavior is the external representation of what's happening to you in the world, right? So we want to be able to change our thoughts so that our behaviors change. So thoughts also have judgments attached to them. And judgment isn't necessarily a good or a bad thing in and of itself. Like, we're not going to judge judgment. It's what we're designed to do. We're designed to have discernment. We're designed to be like, okay, I should go this way, or I should go this way, or I should pick something. So, and that's what I call polarity. So there's like this black and white. There's this or that. There's kind of dividing things into two options. And that's what judgment does, is it's like, okay, do this and don't do this. And so that's the type of thing that we want to look at. Like, this is good, this is bad. I'm safe, I'm in danger. I'm worthy, I'm unworthy. That sounds exciting. That sounds like it's going to be terrible. So those judgments are things that we put over top of our emotions, over top of our experience, over top of the sensations. And then, like I said, they affect our behavior, which is important, right? Because we want to be able to respond with our behavior instead of react with our behavior. So the emotions get the bad rap as being the thing that's like, oh, I was so emotional and I acted out of emotion. Well, you did, but you also acted around the beliefs you had around the emotion as well. So that's where we want to start to alter not only your understanding of emotions, but also your understanding of the beliefs that you have surrounding your emotions. So for example, road rage is a good example of this, of somebody cut me off and this big wave of rage comes through me, right? Just like so angry, like heat in my face, and just like so angry about it. Again, the emotion gets the rage gets the bad rap, but it's also the belief of, not only is the emotion uncomfortable, and you want to, especially with anger, like it's a powerful emotion, you want to take action with it. So the belief around like, how dare they cut me off, like, don't they know, and all of the things that come up around like, they're an idiot and that's terrible and how dare they take my personal space. All of that is what I would call a trigger. And we're going to talk about triggers more next week, because that's that overreaction that's happening. And what we want to be able to do is understand that the emotion itself is fine. It's the what we do with it that is where we get our power, right? So if we're able to understand ourselves and understand why that rage is coming up, and catch the stories that are forming very instantly, like it happens fast, catch all those stories that are forming around the emotion and change the story, and then just be with the emotion itself, be with the sensations in the emotion, then we can breathe through it, and we can start to actually reprogram our beliefs around it. And again, we'll get into why that even comes up and what's going on there, where those triggers come from, and how to reverse engineer them we'll get into that in the next 6 weeks. So what I want you to do as your homework is to look at the language chart. And again, like having the language around sensations is really important. I needed to have a chart. I needed to have some words that help me describe the temperature and the location and the movement, and I needed help with it when I started because I didn't know. I was like, what? Like, I don't know what I feel in my body. So I had to practice it. So check out the language chart, and then there'll be some journal prompts and some things to think about in this email. So take a look at that, journal them in your journal, and see what you can figure out and learn about when it comes to your own sensations. It's going to be very personal to you. And then how that translates into your emotions, and then the thoughts that form around your sensations and emotions. So for example, here in the workbook, the sensation description is expanding light, heat, and warmth. And then you think, okay, and where is that? So that's the location is in front of my chest, kind of around my heart area. And the emotion that I'm corresponding that sensation with is love. Okay. And so now I feel love. Now the thoughts that I'm thinking around that is, I love my dog Walter. Okay. So now a couple things can happen that are important here. Now let's take my example of my little dog here. I could say, I need Walter in order to feel love. Okay. Or I can change my belief around that and understand that that loving feeling is actually coming from within me. It's generating within me. And yes, it's being inspired by my dog, but it's all happening within me. And so when I know those sensations, when I know that emotion, when I have it memorized, and I'm really present with it, then I can actually come back to it like we did with the lemon. I can come back to it whenever I want. Whenever I want to feel that feeling of love again, I don't actually need my dog to be there. I can just come back into either the memory of him, that can be a way in, or just through the sensation of that expanding light, heat, warmth that I feel in my chest that I call love. Okay? And so you see how empowering this is? Instead of making it all these external things, I'm actually recognizing that these things are generated within me. And a classic example of this is if you have a child, or do you remember when you were a child, if you had a security blanket and you felt like your belief was that I need this blanket to feel secure. I need it. Like it's the thing that helps me feel safe, or it's the thing that's keeping me safe, even can be the belief. But really that blanket is just material. It's not actually doing anything. The feeling of safety is actually coming from the child. So this is what we do, is we externalize all these things that are actually happening within us. And when we take responsibility, we take our power back. So that's how important this stuff is. So make sure you fill in your own examples, you do the journal prompts, you self-explore your own sensations, your own emotions, your own thoughts and beliefs. Again, I will give you a link to the Byron Katie Judge Your Neighbor workbook. It's all free online as well. So check those things out. And next week we will talk about fear and making friends with fear and anxiety, and how anxiety and depression are tied in with this fear response. And again, it all comes back to those three parts of the brain: the reptilian brain, the mammalian limbic system, and then the prefrontal cortex, which is your thoughts. So we need to know kind of the mapping of what's going on in order to really understand fear and understand what's going on there. So I encourage you to do that. Again, drink your lemon water, get help from any other coach, psychiatrist, doctor, friend, anybody that you need to. Make sure you're talking and expressing yourself, and I will see you next week.